everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, May 17th of 2026. Now, I had a wonderful week this week. It was my birthday, and I got to spend it with a couple of my sisters, my sons, my grandkids, and I was spoiled with all the attention and all the love. And it kind of really guided my journaling this week because it was a reminder of this human experience that we each have that is so temporary and so magical at the same time. So, the whole thing that really went on in my journaling this week is the reminder that while we might understand a couple things like this is a temporary experience, some of us think, okay, this is a matrix, this is a game, this is something that we're just here to remember who we are. Those are all big, big things. And when you're on this personal growth, awakening, awareness, this whole journey of remembering who we are, it can get full of angst and stress and all the modern problems that we have. We forget all the magic. So, my goal this week was to really observe all of the magical things about being in this human experience during this amazing time to be here. We're almost the middle of 2026. That's amazing. And there are so many cool things happening. So I'm just going to go through my journaling thoughts. And then I have 5 short questions for you to journal on this week as well. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of read what I wrote in my journal. I've been thinking a lot lately about how strange and beautiful this moment for humanity feels, okay, especially in 2026. It seems like the world is becoming more and more matrix-like. If you really look at all the things, the technology, the way people act and react, and the you know, it does seem like it is becoming more matrix-like. And if you can opt out of it from a different view and be more of an observer and find the magic in it, everything changes, right? So it seems like everything is speeding up. So AI, definitely speeding up. Digital realities, social media, your identity on social media, the algorithms. I mean, who hasn't had a conversation with somebody, not on your phones, but your phone was there, and then your phone shows you things. And this is something that we all know happens, but that's wild. In my lifetime too, all the things that I've seen, I was raised without the internet. I raised my kids without the internet. So things are speeding up. There's nonstop stimulation. There's people that literally live through their screens. Okay, and I have been guilty of this in moments here and there. And I've really reached a point, interestingly, where I can't watch. I don't want to watch things. Like I used to kind of get, sucked into some of the things that the algorithms, mostly on YouTube. I love some of the things that I can find on YouTube, the how to, the astrology, the world awakening. Like I love watching interviews with David Icke and Darius. There's so many. And I've even found myself pulling back from all of that because it just feels like too much stimulation. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but it seems like I'm talking to a lot of people who really want to get down to connecting with their fellow humans and experiencing the magic of this matrix, the magic of this earth, right? Okay, so there's a lot of people living through their screens instead of living through actual life. Okay. And it feels like what's happening is people are going further and further away from what's real and grounded. Okay. So at the same time, I don't think the answer is to fear it or reject it completely. I think the goal is awareness and observation. That's the goal. The goal is awareness, observation, and then remembering. And this is something that we talk about all the time. This is something that people that are in my tribe and in my circle is this is something we're like we're remembering who we are, and it's so beautiful, right? So here's the thought: to see this as a matrix, but don't be consumed by it, and to understand it's an illusion while still being able to enjoy the whole experience. Okay. And then I wrote this: to be able to participate consciously. So, you know, if it's easy to get discouraged because it's especially when there's layers of awakening and awareness that happen, and it seems like, this is heavy, this is a lot, this is too much. It's better just to suck into something that numbs me out, whatever that may be. There's so many things that we use to numb us out, even things that might seem kind of healthy, um, like going to the gym. We might, if someone, you could get addicted to going to the gym because it numbs you out. I guess there are worse things. Of course, there are worse things, right? So the goal is to participate consciously and have fun while we're here experiencing this body. I have these friends they retired early from Delta and they've been traveling all over the world um, for a long time. And talk about experiencing and participating in this matrix, in this earthly experience fully, and being conscious of what it all is. These two people are the epitome of enjoying this planet and this experience consciously. And I strive for that, and I've realized I need to be a little more strategic, and I need to get out of my comfort zone more. I don't know if you can relate to that. There's a lot of things that I like to do, but there's a lot of things I've pulled myself back from just because I get in this comfort zone. I've made my house a beautiful oasis. I work in my yard. It just fills me up. I have a thriving business that I love and I get to affect so many people in it. But I get caught in the minutia of the modern world and all that, and sometimes the angst of it. Okay. So here's the truth of it. This world is fascinating and human life is fascinating. Even technology is fascinating, and creation itself is fascinating. Okay, I don't think we came here to escape this whole game entirely. I don't think that's, if we remember who we are, we live in awareness and we live in observation, then we can participate fully in the magic of everything that this game has to offer us, right? I think we came here to remember who we are while participating in it and while moving through it. I really believe that. And then here's what I wrote. Who we are is something so much deeper than just the identity. Like my identity, who I am. We are like my ego, this thing I put on when I walk through this world. Remembering who we are is something so much deeper than the identities that we find ourselves wearing, okay? So underneath this, the labels, the achievements, the fears, the distractions, and all of the personalities, we maybe put on a personality for our family members and a different personality for our friendship group. There's different personalities that we embody while we're here experiencing this. I truly believe we are divine consciousness experiencing itself through human form. I believe we are a spark of God. I believe we are pure awareness, pure love, having a temporary but very physical experience. We all know this is temporary. Even people who don't believe in love on a conscious level like that, and believe in God and believe in the magic of everything, we all know this is temporary. Okay. Maybe that's why there's no amount of money, things that validate us externally, technology, or success really satisfies our soul. I know a lot of people are like, well, I'd love to try what it feels like to be satisfied with as much money as I could ever spend. But you look through all of human history, you look at people who have more money than they could ever spend. And while their life might be a little bit more luxurious, maybe a little bit more comfortable, they're not stressing about putting food on the table or paying their mortgage or paying their bills. That is not true happiness. And, so it's not about external validation, money, technology, or success that ever satisfies our soul, because our soul remembers something eternal. That's what I think. When you start to crack that piece open, our soul remembers something that is eternal. And it's a beautiful path to be on. It can be riddled with angst and crazy times and, trying to bring your family and your friends along with you until you realize, oh, I don't need to do that anymore, right? So I think the matrix only becomes dangerous when we forget ourselves, okay? We forget to be present. We forget about nature. We forget about silence. We forget about love. And we forget that our spirit exists beyond all of these things, the systems, the politics, the media, the trends, and all of the things that the algorithms are showing us. Okay? We forget our spirit exists beyond all of these things. We just forget because we get caught in it. It's dense, and we have to make a conscious effort to remember. We have to make a conscious effort all the time. It's it's kind of insane in a way. So I think that the real battle is happening right now. I think that's the real battle. The battle for human consciousness and attention. I definitely know that there's a battle for our attention. We all know that. All the things that we get caught in. I am human and caught in these same things too sometimes. Absolutely. So I don't think it's a dramatic way. I don't think the battle is dramatic, but I think it's quietly and it's every single day. That's what I see. I think it's the battle is not dramatic. And in some places in the world, it might be dramatic. So here's a couple questions that come in before these last five that I'm going to throw at you at the end. Can we stay connected to our soul in a world that is designed to constantly pull us away from it? I say yes. I say yes. Can we stay soft in a world that profits from our fear? We all know fear is an illusion. I've talked about this so many multiple times. Fear is illusion. Even the fear of death. What we're really afraid of is the pain of death. And we're afraid that we're going to leave this earth before and we're going to miss our loved ones. Our loved ones are going to miss us. We're not going to finish our mission. We're not going to finish that project, or we're not going to be able to finally retire and go do what we've always wanted to do because we have this big bucket list. I think there's this whole fear that is, we just need to remember all of that is an illusion. You know, if I saw something, it was a couple weeks ago, where someone said, if I gave you, um, uh, would you, I can't remember, if I gave you $1 million, there was something about it, but it was like, if I gave you $1 million, would you accept it? And I think this is not the whole thing. And then they said, well, and there were no obligations to it. If I just gave you, and I think the number was bigger, like $10 million. And the guy was like, yeah, if I didn't have to pay it back, that'd be great. The only stipulation is you would die tomorrow. And the person's like, oh no, then I don't want $10 million. I don't want to die tomorrow. But the thing is, none of us know when it's our time to go. And this is not anything new, but sometimes we just simply need reminding, right? So can we stay in a world soft in a world that profits from our fear? Can we stay present in a world that is addicted to distraction? Like I said, this is something I think we all get a little caught in. I think it's a rare person. And when I talk about this kind of stuff, I typically I get beautiful emails from those of you who read my email and watch my videos. And it is such a beautiful reminder how connected and like-minded there are so many of us. And it's a rare person who reminds me that they're out there living away from a world where they're not distracted by all the stuff, right? And then can we remember that we are sacred beings having a temporary human experience? That is the big thing. So let me go to this is a really cool thing. So what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit and write down some of these things that I think we forget are magical about being a human being and having this body. And it's a super good reason to take care of this body so that we can go do all the things, even if it's just take care of ourselves as we age, like to be able to drive and work in our yards and play with our grandkids. And I know that there are things beyond our control, and those are not the things I'm talking about, but I think we forget how magical it is. Sometimes maybe we might be a little bit wheelchair bound. I mean, my mom was wheelchair bound the last 10 plus years of her life. And she was positive, she was happy, she enjoyed old movies, she loved doing art, she loved fresh chocolate chip cookies. This woman lived in a magical place, even though her physical body had kind of trapped her in this world for quite a bit of her life. She still saw the magic in everything. So we can still do that even if we find ourselves in that kind of a situation. So here's what I wrote. Even with all of this noise in the world, I still think that there are places where there's magic that still not only survives, but it thrives. Okay, so there's places that are untouched by things like algorithms, and the artificial pace of humanity. The pace that we keep as modern humans, it's artificial. We're not meant to have this crazy pace. It's not normal. It is not normal. And for anyone who's opted out of the rat race, opted out, started, you know, getting more to the communities, maybe they got a different job because they didn't want to, jump in on the freeway and commute an hour and back on the way to work, or whatever it is. And I actually know people who have been in the rat race, exited. In fact, I have a very good friend who exited for 3 years. She was out. She's about 15 years younger than me, but she's been a dear friend for 20 years. She was in the rat race, raising her kids, being an awesome mom, and she made it work. And then she opted out for 3 years, and she gardened, and she did so many beautiful things. And then she actually got headhunted by a company who was like, okay, they stayed after her for 2 or 3 years. So she opted back in, but in a very, very different way. Her kids are now grown, and now things are different for her. So all I'm saying is it's okay to be in this modern world, even in maybe a very fast-paced type of life that maybe we choose. And this friend totally chose where she's at right now, and she's having the time of her life, but she's in a different space. So I think that we can be untouched by the artificial pace that humanity has created for itself. Okay? And here's the thing that we need to remember. This is what I wrote. Magic still exists in the genuine human connection. That is where I put that at the top of my list. If we're looking for magic, it's at the top of the list. It is in genuine human connection. And I have so much fun when I bring out who I am with people that maybe I don't know or I'm connecting with. And it always makes me smile when someone is still kind of grouchy back to me, like the checker at the grocery store might just kind of be, and that's also okay. But then I would say most of the time, I always get this sparkly, magical response back to me, which I think we forget in the genuine human connection, how magical it is. And then what about this? Conversations when time disappears. Okay. And what I find that is when two souls recognize each other. Like I have a friend I'll stop in. He owns a wellness clinic here in Utah. One of my dearest, dearest friends, 20 plus years. And sometimes if I'm in the area, I'm out running an errand, I will just stop in. And if he's free, I just want to come in for a hug, because he is just such a like-minded soul. And it just lifts both of our days. And I do this with several people. There's not just one person. In fact, some of my favorite people on the planet have become my beautiful accountant and her team of amazing women. I love to stop in and they're so sparkly, they're so amazing and efficient. And Teresa, if you're watching this, I know sometimes you tune in. I adore you and your team. And to have someone that takes such good care of that important piece of this matrix world we live in is amazing to me. And I'm so grateful. Okay, so this is, for me, souls that recognize each other beyond the surface level. Okay, making eye contact, right? And being fully seen by somebody. I'm sure you have those people who totally turn their attention on you and they see you. And then you maybe have people that you'll go out to dinner with, you go out to lunch, you'll meet them for a coffee, or you'll just be in an interaction with them, even like in a grocery store, and they literally do not make eye contact with you. Or they've got their phone right there and they're distracted. When you are fully seen, that is so magical. Okay. Uh, Laughing. I wrote here, laughing so hard you forget every single problem you have. Like I have a sister who lives close, thankfully. She's 20 years younger than me. I adore her. She's got two daughters that are my grandkids' age. I talk about this on a regular basis, but she will send me these funny reels, or she'll send me something that she saw, a screenshot of something, and it made her laugh out loud, and she sends it my way because she knows it's going to make me laugh too. Because sometimes I get all serious. Well, a lot of the times I do. So it's I wrote laughing so hard I forget every problem. And then sitting beside someone you love in complete silence and somehow realizing that you don't have to say anything, um, because there's just love there. Like that is magic, human connection magic. Now the next thing I wrote is about the magic that exists in nature, because this is it's definitely my jam. It's definitely where I connect and I find magic. And I know more and more people in this modern world, especially if we're becoming aware, we're remembering who we are, they're starting to realize how much magic is in nature. In fact, just on just on Friday, I was with my nephew and his wife and their three little kids. They literally have a 3-year-old, a almost 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old. And we were out in my backyard. It was a beautiful day. We were sitting on the outdoor furniture underneath an awning, and it's just a magical day with the kids and everything. And up in underneath this awning, there's always this nest where these ring-necked doves, which are they're a little bit of a problem in my yard, but they're always in my yard every single year. But there's a nest up in the corner of this awning, of this overhang in the back of my house. And when we were sitting there, I noticed that the mom had been sitting there for a while, and that there were two baby birds I'd seen over the last couple of weeks. And there were two birds sitting there next to each other. And I realized they didn't have the ring around their neck yet. So, and it's very distinctive. There's a black ring that goes right around these doves' necks, ring neck doves. And they're sitting there in the nest next to each other. They're kind of moving, they're flapping their wings a little bit. And then the mom comes in and starts poking at them. And we're watching this whole thing and we're realizing, oh, these birds, it's time for them to fly out of the nest. You know, the mom wasn't bringing them food. She was poking at them. And we sat there for probably about 30 minutes just kind of observing and playing. And one of the birds was brave, took off, kind of fell down to the cement and kind of started walking around. And it was like he had these big like clown feet. It was the cutest thing to watch. And he started kind of squawking at his brother. And when I was out there yesterday, so this was on Friday, when I was out there yesterday, the brother was still up in the nest trying to find his wings to fly. Now, this is the kind of nature that if you observe it and you pay attention, it was so magical. I mean, we named the birds. It was Tony. Tony flew down and we started thinking like, what's Tony saying to his brother? And his brother got the name Sebastian. And then pretty soon it was, come on, Sabby, you need to get brave and fly. And then every once in a while the mom would come and, you know, she actually went onto this other place in the yard and started kind of calling to her other baby bird, who wasn't really a baby anymore, but big enough to be able to fly out. And it was just the most magical moment because we were paying attention and we were aware, right? No one was sucked into their screens. This is the part of nature. So here's what I wrote. Magic exists in nature because nature never stops being real. It never tries to be fake. It's just real, okay? The ocean doesn't care. It's there. It's just being there, right? The mountains don't care about social media. They don't care about what's trending. The mountains are just there. They're just real. The trees don't rush. The trees just, you know, they're waiting for you to observe the magic in them. And we had a really weird snap of a freeze that kind of, the leaves were all coming on, and we had this crazy freeze a couple weeks ago, and it shocked a lot of the young leaves that were coming out, and the trees are still trying to recover in my yard. But I went around after that happened and I literally loved on and hugged on all my trees, and they're coming back, they're recovering. But this is all part of the magic. What I realize is this: there's something healing about remembering that the earth is still alive beneath all of these crazy systems that humanity has created. I think look at what we've built on top of Mother Earth. And I'm not saying we shouldn't never build anything. We shouldn't, provide roads and bridges and things for us to move around and get goods and services to each other. But if you really even just look at the amount of lawns in the US and what a waste of resources. And I have a small lawn in my front, and you know, we used to have a huge lawn in the back, and we don't have that anymore. So we put a pool there, which has been enjoyed for about 10 years now, very greatly. But so that's what I wrote. So there's something healing about remembering that the earth is still alive beneath all of these systems that humanity has built on top of it. And I think that sometimes one of the most magical things about nature is just standing barefoot in the grass, in the ocean, um, just on the dirt, just standing barefoot on the ground and just not having your phone with you, um, not having it, if you cannot have like something in your ear, like a podcast or, and not all the time. If there's things that you really need to listen to and this is your best time is when you're out grounding, get out and ground. Because sometimes it's just magical standing on the earth. And then I realized there is such a magic to being a creative human. And we all have things that make us different in what we love to create. So I think a lot of that is really creating from our soul. Okay. So writing, making music, cooking. And I think with cooking and preparing food, not just sometimes we have to do things super fast, but if we do it more slow and with intention, there really is magic. When you are preparing food with love and intention of nourishment, sometimes you might not have access to the very best ingredients. And this is something my mom was so good at when she was feeding all of us, and sometimes she would have a big bag of potatoes or just bread, and then she would have some, tomatoes. She'd make a big pot of spaghetti that kind of had a thin sauce to it. And if we were lucky, we had a hamburger with it with some chopped up onions in it. But my mom always reminded us not only to be grateful, but when you make things with love and intention, it changes the nourishment of it. And that has always stayed with all of me and my siblings. And I think there's magic in creating all of these things. So writing, making music, cooking, dancing, especially dancing when no one's watching. If you're a really good dancer and you dance when no one's watching, that's super magical, right? Or if you're a really bad dancer and you dance when everyone's watching, that's also super magical, right? And then this is really where it's cool. I think it's really magical when you create a life that actually reflects who you are, and really not what the world told you who to be. That's what I think. And I think a lot of us go into our life, our adult life, doing what our parents expect us, or what the family business is, or you know okay. So then this, I think that magic lives in being present. That's one of the most important things. And there's rare moments when the mind goes quiet and everything feels like it's alive. Like if you really let yourself go into that space, which we do so rarely, if ever, people get out of bed, they rush to get ready for work, rush to get their kids off to school, rush to clean their house, rush to go on their walk because they got to get their steps in. And they got all these things they got to do during the day, and everything's got to be, you have all these things, boxes to check. And then you brush your teeth, you wash your face, maybe you have a little routine you do, and then you fall into bed and you hopefully get a good night's sleep. Okay. That is honestly not being very present. And I know that those are days that some people, for the most part, kind of have to have. I get that. Okay. But I think there are rare moments when our mind goes quiet and everything becomes very vivid. If you let your mind get quiet. And I tend to overthink. This is just something I work on constantly. In fact, I brought this up a few months ago where I talked about how important it is and what a different layer it adds when you actually can observe your own thoughts from like a disconnected, where you just go, you're really observing what you're thinking. And then I catch myself going, oh, that's just a thought. That's just an emotion. And I can replay a scenario, a situation in my mind over and over and over and over again. And then I just have to I have to be very conscious of this. And this is where awareness and observation comes in. It's actually kind of cool. So then I wrote this. This is some of the things that always remind me that life is so vivid. Um, when sunlight hits some of the windows in my house, I have a lot of windows in my house, and a lot of times because there are so many windows, and there's windows in a main area that face each other. So there's a lot of reflection and there's a lot of light that comes in. Sunlight pours in the morning on one side, and the sunset and the sunlight going down pours in on the other side. Well, because the windows are so big and they're windows, and there's so many birds in my yard, a lot of times over the years, the birds will fly right into the windows. And most of the time they're okay. Sometimes we find birds that didn't make it. They smacked so hard. But when the sunlight, especially the sunlight as it's coming down, reflects on the windows, you can literally see the outline of the entire bird. You can see the wings, the feathers, you can see the beak, you can see the whole. I've taken so many pictures of birds that have left an imprint, and it's it probably wasn't very pleasant for the bird, but it is, when you see sunlight stream through, like a sunset can completely take my breath away. A rainbow can completely take my breath away. These are the little things that we observe. In fact, almost every single time I have this imprint of a bird on my window, I tend to keep it there for a really long time because I think it's so magical. It's so beautiful. Sometimes the rain will wash it away, depending on where it is, and what window it's on, and where the rain is falling. And sometimes the windows get so dirty that it's just time to wash all the windows. But that's one of those things. And then, are you ever in your car and a song comes on at just that moment? In fact, I actually took a little video of a song, Tina Turner, "You Better Be Good to Me." That's the name of the song. And this was a couple years ago, and I was driving home. I don't remember where I was driving home from. And this song came on, and the sunset was just like one of those, just blaring. The sky was bright orange, bright red. There were some beautiful clouds. It was just like, and so I turned on my phone. The music was just going, and so I cranked up the music. I turned on my phone, and I turned it on video, and I just held it up on the steering wheel because I was driving west toward the sunset, and so there was the music, and it just gave me chills, and it was felt like so vivid, like this moment, and I'm really grateful that I filmed it, because I ran across it a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, yeah, that was a cool moment. It washed all that back on me. So then I wrote this. There are tiny moments that seem very insignificant until you realize that that's what life is actually. That is what makes life, are these tiny moments. I think that's what people are really searching for. Okay. Not the consumption or the distraction or everything that's in the simulation, but just pure aliveness. That's what I think people are really searching for. So there's also something deeply magical about remembering who we are. That really is magical, right? And I think that can happen along with the human experience, because then it makes it, whew, like now when I am fully doing the hard things and doing the fun things and laughing and experiencing everything that life has to offer, it's, you know who you are, and you can just experience it for the pure joy of it, or maybe the pure heartbreak of it. As a person who's lost both my parents, there's heartbreak there. There's heartbreak when you lose people you love. And that is part of this human experience, okay? And then this is what I realized. My intuition becomes strong, much stronger when I am in a place of remembering. And this is where things like I think synchronicities start to happen, right? It suddenly feels like I'm let's see, uh, suddenly feels obvious that consciousness is bigger than the physical world. Okay, so it suddenly feels so suddenly yeah, I can't read my writing here. Things suddenly feels obvious that consciousness is bigger than the physical world. Okay, I'm sure you know what I mean by that. There are moments when I can almost feel that this life, there is something infinitely larger and more intelligent than I can even fully understand. Okay, I think that's why my soul gets exhausted, right? And I think part of it is just the constant noise from all the digital stuff. That's my soul honestly gets exhausted, and that's why these last couple weeks I haven't even really wanted to open up my my social media or my YouTube. And I used to kind of get lost. I'm like, okay, I need to, but my soul is feeling exhausted by all of that, all of that. Um, a huge part of me knows we were meant to experience life directly, not just observe it through our screens. There's there's a huge part of me. In fact, my entire being knows that that's not how we're supposed to experience life. Okay. Still, I don't think we're here to reject it. Okay. I think we're here to bring consciousness to it. I really believe that. I believe that with everything that makes me me. I think we need to move through this life without losing our connection to wonder. Things that I mean, think about when you introduce a child to something new for the first time. You are literally seeing it through their eyes. Okay. Um, to move through this life without losing our connection to wonder, to stay awake enough to notice the beauty and and hopefully point it out to other people, because so many people rush past it. They rush past beauty because they're just so busy either looking at their screens. Like, how odd is it when you see people crossing a street and they've got their phone down? And I'm for if anything for like safety reasons, like you're just like trusting the universe, which I'll trust in the universe is great, but you're not seeing anything except for what's on your screen. I don't think we're meant to live like that. Okay, so now here are the questions I'm going to leave you with. So these are 5 questions that would make a beautiful journaling experience for you this week, if you feel so inclined. Okay, the first one is this: what moments in my life have felt undeniably real or spiritually alive, and why did they affect me so deeply? Okay, so that's a really good place to start, right? In what ways have I unconsciously allowed the modern world to disconnect me from myself, my intuition, and my presence? Okay, so there's a lot of things we do unconsciously. That's why we need to do everything we do in this life. We need to catch ourselves if we're unconsciously doing something and bring it back to consciousness. Okay, if I truly believed I was a divine spark of consciousness, how would I treat myself, others, and my daily life differently? How would I do that? What would you do different? You know, what parts of my identity are authentic to my soul, and what parts were created by conditioning, fear, or what society expects? That's a huge one. That is huge, because the goal is to be who you are fully and authentically. I know, easier said than done. I know. I know that. Because trust me, we all experience that, even in moments we don't want, it's funny how we do things to even we dampen who we really are, because we don't even want a stranger to think ill of us or think we're funny or weird, or we need to just be authentic and have fun while we're in this experience. And then this final one, which this is going to wrap it up. What does it actually mean to live consciously inside this matrix instead of being controlled by it? In fact, I had a couple of great conversations with people just this week about the Truman Show, and just how shockingly real It feels when you're awake, aware, you're remembering who you are. You remember that you're a divine spark of God, a piece of consciousness. You are a part of all that is, and you are here to experience. You are here to love and create and dance and enjoy. Enjoy. We're here to enjoy it. And this week, I actually started kind of, I didn't do this for a long time. And I had a moment about 20 years ago where I wrote a bucket list of stuff because some of my sisters were doing it. And, you kind of go, what is it I want to put? And then I just kind of realized I'm just going to enjoy my life. Well, I've decided there's got to be some things that I need to get out of my comfort zone because I have a comfort zone. Like I'm sure you guys do too. Everyone, and I find that the more of an oasis and I make my home and my space, the more I just want to stay here and hunker in. And I'm not saying all that's a bad thing, but I believe we're here to experience and enjoy and to love and to take risks. I'm not talking about take risks that is going to hurt other people or take your own life or, of course, I'm not talking about those things. But one of the things that, these friends of mine who travel all over the world, one of their favorite travel years was 2020 because the world was really kind of, well, the world was in lockdown, not kind of, it was in lockdown. Um, they know the schedules of flights. They know because they can jump on airplanes when the loads are empty. And then they also just kept an eye on what countries stayed open. And they had some of the most magical experiences because people weren't out traveling. And there were a lot of places they couldn't go, but they have some of the most amazing stories that they still talk about from that time in their life. So I think that we need to be careful of places that are in unrest and there's wars, but we need to not be afraid to go out and continue to experience this magical, beautiful 3D matrix that we live in. So I'd love to know what you think about this and what is something that you guys do to stay in this beautiful reality while still knowing that you are here for a temporary reason. You're a divine spark of God, remembering who you are, but you are enjoying the hell out of it. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you next time.